Hi, I'm Kyle Cohan, the owner of Wing Zone. We're proud to be associated with the Pat Dooley Show. Check us out at wingzone.com or come see us downtown on University Avenue.
Hey, and welcome to the latest Pat Dooley Show. Hope you are going to enjoy this one. You know, the greatest thing about this cool weather is my grass isn't growing. I love that. I haven't had to mow it every 6 days the last week. And it has been a welcome change in the weather, certainly, but you don't want to talk about weather. You want to talk about sports. And, of course, the Florida Gators getting the win. Great game. If you were just watching casually, if you're a Gator fan, you were probably nervous and upset, but Florida pulls out the win 23-20. Got to give them credit for coming back and making those last two drives after all the problems they had with the fumbles and the drop passes and everything else, and some defensive problems as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle Mississippi State this week, because Mississippi State has a guy in Anthony Dixon who can really run it, and Florida's middle is obviously in trouble with injuries, with Tratow now out, with Spikes is probably going to play, but you never know when that groin injury is going to flare up on him. Marsh, is he going to get back? We'll see if he gets back into the mix. So they got some problems up the middle. And, of course, the biggest issue for Florida against Mississippi State is Dan Mullen. He knows everything Florida does. He knows their strengths. He knows their tendencies. And even though Florida's got a better team, it'll be interesting to see if he can cause them trouble. It's like Urban said, this is a defense that they're running at Mississippi State is basically everything that bothered Florida. I'm not saying they designed it for Florida, but he knows what bothers defenses, or offenses, so he knows a little bit about it. And it'll be interesting to see how that is all handled. And, of course, they're asking for a record crowd out there, which would be like 30,000. I'm not even sure what they hold out there. And you'll be hearing some cowbells as well in lovely Starkville. Interesting game for the Gators, though, to kind of get over this little, can you have a hangover from a win? Maybe a little bit of one. And I think what Urban said on Monday, and I just talked to him a little while ago about it as well, that this team is under so much pressure. I can't remember a Florida team, I don't think there's ever been one, that's been under so much pressure. Not just to play perfect, you've got to be perfect. You cannot lose a game. If you do, you're out of it. That's not necessarily true, but I think they feel that way, and I think a lot of people feel that there's no way they can go to the national championship game if they don't win every game. And the funny thing is, they will still tell you our goal is to go to Atlanta. Well, you're in great shape for Atlanta. You got a 2-game lead on everybody. South Carolina's 2 games back. You'd have to lose twice, and that would include to South Carolina for that to happen. So, I think that their goal of getting to Atlanta looks pretty good right now. The goal of getting to a national championship, hey, there's a lot of football to be played. Don't forget, the marble jar is only half empty, or half full, depending on how you want to look at it. 12 games, they played 6. They got 6 to go, and we'll see how they do. All right, now we're going to look at the 3 things I learned this weekend. All right, the 3 things I learned this weekend. Number 1, Urban Meyer hired the wrong guys to be his assistant coaches. Obviously, there's some of you out there that could do a much better job, at least judging from your emails and some of your phone calls. Look, there's a reason why Emmanuel Moody didn't get more than 3 carries. He explained it this week. The Arkansas defense, the way they were playing it, he thought it was better to have the smaller, quicker guys out there. But you probably know better. I understand that. There's a reasons why some things happen out there and why certain players get in and certain plays are called that the coaches have been watching tape. The coaches have been studying it. The coaches have been at practice for one thing. Lay off them, okay? They're unbeaten. They're 50-9 since Urban Meyer arrived here. Number 2, you don't tear down the goalpost when you beat a one-loss team that's not even your rival. Really, Georgia Tech? Goalpost after you beat Virginia Tech? Really? That's the second time they lost in that city this year. You don't tear down the goalpost, and you had some injuries, obviously, after that, which you're going to get with goalpost teardowns, which is why I'm against them. But from what I was told, the cops are actually helping people over the wall. Here, let me help you, young lady. Go down and tear the goalpost down, see if you can make it land on somebody's head. Just stupid. And number 3, Arkansas was not robbed. Okay, it was a terrible call. There's no question about it. The SEC's admitted the personal foul on Malcolm Shepard was a bad call. But that meant Florida was going to have the ball 2nd and 9 on the Arkansas 20. They might have scored. They probably would have scored. Just because they got 9 or 10 extra yards, that is not the whole game. The pass interference call, I don't agree with people who say that was a bad call. I think it was a fine call. I think it was the right call. And you can argue that back and forth, but that's a judgment call. Look, SEC officials make a lot of mistakes. They're not very good. But anybody who really believes there's a conspiracy to make sure Florida and Alabama stay undefeated just doesn't know college football. All right, we're going to come back. Special guest today. We're going to switch gears a little bit and go talk a little basketball with Billy D.
The Pat Dooley Show, brought to you by Wing Zone, locally owned and operated, featuring 15 award-winning flavors. Count on Wing Zone for all of your tailgating needs. Call or order online at wingzone.com. Call for daily lunch specials. Ask about our 2 for $12 special.
Okay, welcome back to the Pat Dooley Show. We're joined now by Billy Donovan, head basketball coach at the University of Florida. And, you know, Jeremy, the other day at Media Day, said something that actually caught me by surprise. He goes, 14th year. Could you have ever envisioned 14 years here?
Well, you know, Pat, 14 years to me is amazing, but the thing that's even more amazing is just how quickly, you know, it's gone by. My oldest son was 4 years old when we moved here, and he's a senior in high school now. So when people say time flies, it really does go by quickly, and you know, it's been a great 14 years. You know, for me, I've really enjoyed everything.
You know, a lot of people have asked me how you've handled the last 2 years, not going to the tournament, and I know it's been tough for everybody. But something you told me last summer is almost like you really started over after the 04s left. You started from scratch, kind of build it up, and I think you feel like you're on the verge maybe of having another really good team this year. Well,
I think the one thing, Pat, that happened was, you know, even back in 2000 when we had some early departures of a Mike Miller and, you know, a Donnell Harvey, we were able to overcome that because you still had Brett Nelson, you still had Matt Bonner, you still had Udonis Haslem. There were still pieces in place. But for our, you know, team losing 4 guys early and then 2 seniors really made it very, very difficult. And then on top of that, we felt like we had, you know, brought in some very good young players, but, you know, an opportunity was afforded to Maurice Spates, which really I thought hurt our front court last year. And then obviously this year we've got some depth issues in our backcourt with the departure of Nick. But this start of this season so far, I've been really, really pleased with our guys. Just the intensity of practice, the condition they're in, the shape they're in. I think that they've matured in a lot of different ways, which has enabled us to have much, much more competitive practices, and through that have a greater opportunity to get better and improve.
How difficult is it for you, not only guys leaving early, but guys who transfer out? I mean, I think you've had like 13 4-year seniors, which is a lot of college basketball teams go through that. But how difficult is that for you to recruit kids and bring them in here and then have them, Jay Lucas, whether it's Jonathan Mitchell, any of those guys, and have them leave early? Well,
you know, one thing, Pat, has happened, I think, in college basketball with all, they're looking at graduation rates and those type of things. But the thing that's interesting is 40% of every college basketball player will not even enter his junior year at the same school he started, whether it's through transferring or whether it's through you know, leaving school early and pursuing a professional career. I think because of the financial opportunity, not only in the NBA, but even overseas. I mean, you see NBA players now going overseas. Right. You know, here's Nick Kalathis. I think maybe would have been a first-round draft pick, but he had such a lucrative contract offer in Greece, he couldn't pass it by. What happens is the opportunities for these kids to earn a living, they realize that they want to, in a lot of respects, put themselves in a position to do that. And I think when kids are not maybe playing as much as they would have liked or hoped early on, it's easy to make a change and go somewhere else to try to pursue something, because again, you know, even if they don't make it to the NBA, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lot of these guys overseas.
Well, it's kind of funny because obviously the 04s are a special class, and you've said many times, I didn't know they were going to do that. I didn't know they were going to mesh like that. Is there a way to tell if guys have that character and have that ability to be understand what the team concept is?
You know what, Pat, that's the hardest thing. And I think even for this group that I'm coaching right now, that was really a process. You know, I think a lot of guys had such a strong interest in coming to Florida because they looked at those guys getting to the NBA, or even a David Lee or a Matt Bonner, all those guys getting a chance to play professional basketball, and they said, okay, if I go to Florida, I can be a pro. But maybe not totally understanding what goes into getting to that point. And I think a perfect example is, you know, in 2007, if you look at the national championship game, I think there was maybe 8 or 9 players in that game that were in the NBA. Right. And I know when Noah and Horford came to school, they were not projected as lottery picks. You know, they had an unbelievable work ethic, they had a great attitude, they understood that through winning, it was going to get them to the level they wanted to get to, and winning was a priority. And I think that's one of the challenges for us in recruiting, and that's why I like to see a lot of the recruiting rules change, because we don't really get a chance to know these kids well enough. And you know what? The kids really don't get a chance to know the coaches well enough. And I think a lot of times when kids are making decisions, that's why you're seeing at such a rate a lot of kids changing schools or changing situations, because you know, the way the process is set up right now, there's not enough personal interaction where you can really get to know each other.
You know, I was explaining to our camera woman, Trish, that where you guys used to practice, and she found it hard to believe. It must be something just every day you walk in here to look at all this stuff and all those Final Fours and the banners up there, and it must bring back memories. Must come rushing in. You got to get rid of them and go coach, but they still must be there every day.
Well, you know, Pat, I remember when I first got here, you know, on campus, the old Bennigan's there on Archer Road. We went there and had lunch, and you know, I was 30 years old at the time, and I think you were even talking about, you know, the success that Lon had going to the Final Four, and maybe some frustrations trying to recruit Vince Carter and keeping him home, and the challenges here. And we talked about, you know, can you really do something special here in basketball? And I think it really all comes from the administration. Then obviously you got to recruit and have good quality players here. But I think with what I've had a chance to be a part of here at the school, you know, and getting a chance to meet so many different people, having my family be raised here. In the coaching profession, you have a tendency to change positions and jobs a lot of times, but, you know, it's been a place where I've been able to stay and love it here. And then you look back, as you've mentioned, you know, you go back 10 years ago and start to see some of these guys come back. And, you know, I was almost surprised when I saw last year Jason Williams retired. Like, I couldn't believe he retired. You know, it made me feel like I was getting old, but I was glad he went back to play. But there's been a lot of great players, a lot of great teams, and a lot of great memories. And, you know, one of the things we try to do in our facility is to try to, you know, let our guys know that there was a path laid beforehand. Right. And I talk a lot about, and that was one of the reasons, I think with some of our younger guys, them having understanding of where Mike Miller and Udonis Haslam and these guys practiced, and then what's been afforded them right now, and can they leave Florida in a better situation than it was when they got here for the next group of guys that come in.
What he doesn't mention is that I said it could never be a basketball school. He didn't mention that. He has mentioned it in the past, I will tell you that. So what do you got? What's your latest thing you've downloaded on your iPod? I know you're a big U2 guy.
I love U2. I actually went to the U2 concert.
Did you?
I went to Tampa. I had a chance. I took my both my boys with me. My wife was out of town with my daughter. They were my daughter was in a horse show.
Did they bring it?
They were great. They were really, really good. That's the third time I had a chance to see him play. I saw him play twice when I was in college in the Boston Garden and the Providence Civic Center. So I really enjoyed that. I haven't really downloaded anything, too much lately. Just being on the road in September recruiting and now practice starting. Yeah. I haven't had time to download much on the iPod.
I need to make you a mix CD. I make some great ones for Trish there, so I'll make you a really good one.
I would enjoy that.
Well, I got to ask you this question because I get asked this question all the time when I'm on the radio. When the Magic were having their success, did you have any regrets about not going down there and taking that job? And my answer is always no. Once he turned his back completely.
Yeah, you know what? I was very, very happy for them because, I think with what happened for me, I felt bad at the position I put them in. The one thing that I do really have a lot of peace about is, Stan Van Gundy. I've known him for a long, long time. He recruited me a little bit when I was in high school. I know he went through a difficult time, down there in Miami, and then to see him have that type of success. Right. I look at it a little bit differently, Pat. I almost look at it like, there's a lot of college coaches that have gone to the NBA and it has not worked out because, and I think a lot of it has been because they, were put into situations or took jobs where it was very difficult to win. And at least I think my instincts were on that I felt like Orlando had a chance to be a very good team. And I think you always would want to be part of or experiencing something like that. But at the same point, I think it was a lot deeper for me than just the winning and the losing part of it. And, as I mentioned earlier, my family being here now for 14 years, I've been lucky that my kids haven't had it really change a lot. Being in the community, trying to continue to build what we've had a chance to build, and that I think, Pat, was for me the biggest thing was that we've invested, and I say we, I mean our coaches, the administration, everybody had invested 11 years to get to that point. And then you almost want to say, okay, where can we really try to take, Florida basketball to? And I think that was something that, was very, very interesting to me, and I think looking back at it, I just felt like, that's really what I wanted to try to do.
How's little Billy's jump shot going?
He's doing well, Pat. He's going through a little bit of the recruiting right now. I think he'd love to go to college. No, he does not want to play for me. He's already made that very, very clear. But he's got some interest maybe of going back to the Northeast. He likes Washington D.C. area. He likes the New York area. He likes up in New England. So he's got a few schools looking at him right now. He hasn't made any decisions yet.
He's not a quiet commitment or
no. He's
soft commitment.
No soft, quiet commitment to me or anybody right now. I think he really wants to see, where he could go and play, and who would really like to have him part of their program. But he's a great kid. I'm proud of him. He's worked very, very hard. I think he's excited for his senior year, and it's going to be, I think, very, very difficult for my wife. Not that it's not going to be difficult for me, but I think anytime your first child now leaves and goes off to college, I think my wife is really not looking forward to that too much.
Well, we'll be empty nest because you still got plenty.
We got 3 more to go there. I'm not sure which would be tougher, the first one leaving or when the last one's gone.
Well, I can tell you Urban Meyer cried like a baby when his first one left, so you'll have to experience that. All right, that's going to do it with our interview of Billy Donovan. When we come back, we'll look at the latest list here on the Pat Dooley Show.
Wing Zone was started in Gainesville and has over 70 locations across the country. Our Wing Zone has been recognized by the Wing Zone Corporation in 2007 as Franchise of the Year. Call 352-331-6011 or visit us online at wingzone.com.
All right, it's time for the latest list, and today, halfway through the season, let's look at the 5 coaches that are on the hottest seats in college football around the country. Number 5, Greg McMackin at Hawaii. Of course, he had the slur a little bit earlier in the year, didn't help him any, but they're just awful. And look, Hawaii, and one reason he's only number 5, Hawaii may say, look, what do we? It's hard to go get somebody to bring him over here, put him in these crummy facilities, and they have to fly across country every time they have a away game, and they may just stick with him. But you got to look at him and go, man, he's just not getting it done. And then to have a character issue as well doesn't help him at all. Number 4, Ralph Friedgen. At Maryland, he lost 100 pounds, but he's lost a lot of games, and they're just awful. You're not seeing a team that's getting better or a team that has had a rise over the years of the fridge. They've just gone downhill. They loved him at first. He was doing great, but, man, they are really bad. So he's the number 4 guy. Number 3, Mike Sanford at UNLV. You say, well, who cares about UNLV? Well, I put him on here because he's an Urban Meyer, a former Urban Meyer assistant at Utah, obviously. He was the offensive coordinator. How are these stats for you? The last 2 games they played, and this is not exactly against Alabama and USC. This was against Nevada, Reno, and BYU. UNLV's given up 122 points and 1,384 yards. That, my friends, is bad football, and I think he's on his way out. He could be out by the time you're watching this show. And number 2, our old pal Ron Zook at Illinois. The Zooker is not doing very well, obviously. He's got no wins against Division I-A teams this year and a 16-35 overall record. The AD, when he says this, I'll evaluate him at the end of the year, that's never good. The evaluation's not going to go, you're doing a wonderful job, Ron. They took a team, an offense with 8 offensive starters returning, and they're just awful on offense. So the Zooker is close to being gone again. Second time he'll be fired in 5 years. And number 1, Mike Sherman at Texas A&M. Really, when that hire was made, weren't we all going, are you kidding me? Really, Mike Sherman? No, that's not going to work out for you, and it's not working out for him. He's barely hanging by a thread. I expect him to be gone by the end of the year. So that's our 5 guys on the hottest seats. Next up, Robbie Andrews, my colleague, is going to join me for Either Or.
Check out the Pat Dooley Show, brought to you by Wing Zone. Remember, when it comes to your next football party, Wing Zone has you covered. Now offering convenient delivery. Call 352-377-2473 or go online to wingzone.com to order today.
All right, it's time to play Either Or, and we didn't want to expose Billy Donovan to controversial questions. Instead, we brought in my colleague Robbie Andrews, who you see on the Swampcast. Robbie, welcome in.
Thanks. I welcome controversy.
That's right. First question on Either Or, Robbie. Which team has been a bigger bust this season, Ole Miss or Florida State?
No question to me, Ole Miss. Expectations were outrageous for them.
They were.
You know, it's Jevon Sneed, Heisman. They were going to beat Alabama, win the West, play Florida again in a rematch in the title game. And they've been a total collapse. Sneed's been awful. And, you know, FSU expectations were fairly high, but not ridiculously high. And the fact that they've kind of fallen off a little bit isn't as big a surprise as the Ole Miss nosedive, which has been a real train wreck.
Yeah, it has. The only difference was FSU's dive has been a little deeper, but I don't think their expectations, certainly, they weren't in the top 5 when they lost their first game.
And the only difference, too, is that FSU, the whole coaching thing's a mess.
Yeah.
You know, at Ole Miss, at least,
Ole Miss has no excuse.
Yeah, they've just completely collapsed.
All right, Robbie, second question on Either Or. Which SEC team will make it to a bowl game, Kentucky or Tennessee, your favorite team?
Kentucky, with the quarterback situation, I'm not sure they're going to make it. You know, their schedule gets tougher. Tennessee's actually come around a little bit, and Crompton getting Player of the Week 2 weeks ago. That's pretty impressive. So I think Tennessee has a chance, and I think they have a chance to play well at Alabama this weekend.
What's not impressive is Georgia's secondary, allowing him to be Player of the Week.
Yeah, that's.
Here's one thing you got to remember, though. Kentucky still has. They got La Monroe this week. Then they've got Vandy down the road. They got the Vols. I mean, that could be Kentucky, Tennessee could end up being.
They could.
Winner goes to the Music City Bowl.
It could be. A lot on the line that game.
Tennessee probably gets beat this week by Alabama. They still got some tough games left. It'll be close. I'll take Kentucky right now. Number 3, which is a bigger rivalry game, Robbie? Tennessee, Alabama, or Auburn, LSU?
Auburn, LSU is big, but not as big as Alabama, Tennessee. Alabama, Tennessee is one of the great long-standing rivalries in conference history, and the hate between those two teams runs really deep. And the LSU Auburn thing, they've played big games. I don't sense the hate though that you see at with the Alabama Tennessee thing, which goes way back, old school SEC football.
Well, if you remember, it used to be the 3rd Saturday in October, but TV said we want it on the 4th Saturday. So
whatever TV says, that's where you go.
Yeah, you're right about Auburn, LSU. You don't sense that hatred. I think maybe it's because there's so much hatred in that division sent elsewhere with Saban and Nutt and all those guys, and Tuberville for a long time, of course. And Tennessee, of course, it goes back to the Fulmer thing. Yeah. Fulmer turning them in, Alabama in, and creating that controversy. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Tennessee, Alabama, even though it's not interdivision, is probably a big one.
No, it's just one that goes way back. It's like Florida-Auburn's still a big rivalry, even though they don't play.
Either or, the last one for you, Robbie. If you had to spend 1 year in a town, which would it be, Starkville or Auburn?
Oh, thanks for the nice choice there, Pat.
Yeah.
But I'll take Auburn. To me, easy call, because back in the 80s, I did a Bo Jackson story. They sent me, the Fort Lauderdale paper sent me there for a week. It was great. It was like mini Gainesville to me. Just a much smaller version of Gainesville. I really liked it there. Starkville, I don't know what's there still. I've been there 3 or 4 times. I don't know what's there.
There's a stadium. We know that. Apparently there's a school.
I almost ran over a student once, not paying attention. She was going across the crosswalk. That's my only real memory of Starkville.
Well, we don't even stay in Starkville.
I don't even know if there's a town.
There is. Somebody told me there's actually the downtown's not bad now, that it's gotten a lot better. But we'll be staying in lovely Columbus because their only hotel that was available was a Days Inn, and the review said mold on the ceilings, water on the floor. Didn't we have a review like that for a room in New York last year? We did.
There was blood on the wall or something. It was really wild.
That was, yeah.
Remember?
It was in New York.
Okay, let's scratch that off the list.
Yeah, we scratched that one off the list.
But yeah, Auburn.
I'm with you. And I got an email from a guy who was yelling at me about, he said it was on Paul Feinbaum's show and was ridiculing Starkville. And he said Starkville's a lot nicer, and the only reason Gainesville's any good is because there's an interstate going through it. And I'm like, no, that's the big negative of Gainesville.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Second of all, it was never on the Paul Feinbaum show. I'm boycotting it. So
I wonder who was impersonating you on the Paul Feinbaum show.
Could have been just about anybody. All right, that's going to do it for Robbie. We're going to come back and look and see what's in Dr. Football's email bag. Okay, let's look and see what's in Dr. Football's email bag. That's a lot better hand than we've had in the past. All right, Dr. Football is being asked, what has happened to the Gator Wildcat this year? It was run with Percy Harvin last year. Don't believe I've seen it once this year. Can it be run with numbers 2, 3, 5, 21, or 25? Paulo sent that in. Who are those guys? Oh, Demps, Rainey, Hayden, Moody, and Brandon James. Yeah, I mean, you could see that, but for some reason they've just gone away from him. I think the main reason is that Percy Harvin was that special. You could snap him the ball and just try to get in people's way, and he would not only with his speed, get to the outside and find a hole, he could power through guys. I don't know if they've got a guy like that anymore that can do that. Their Wildcat really right now is Tim Tebow back there, and that's probably the way it's going to be. All right, I appreciate everybody for clicking on. I want to thank Billy Donovan and Robbie Andrew for being on the show again this week. Next week, it's Halloween. You never know what I might dress as. We're still trying to figure that out. Until next time, Pat Dooley saying so long from the Sunshine State.